A pleasant day to you, everyone. This is Group 1, and welcome to our comprehensive report. In this discussion, we will be tackling about the following: the ethical and unethical communication in the workplace, including work from home, major cause of unethical communication, and potential for communication abuse or any illegal ways. Now, for us to be able to have a seamless discussion in this lecture. Here are the objectives. First, understand the ethical and unethical communication in the workplace, identify the major causes of unethical communication, determine the potential abuse and illegal ways in communication, and last, to recognize the different kinds of communication abuse. For the first presenters, here are Miss Panganiban and Miss Samson.
Okay, let's proceed to ethical communication. Ethical communication is the type of communication that is predicated upon certain business values such as being truthful, concise, and responsible with one words, and the resulting actions. Next slide, please. So, in ethical communication in the workplace, we have here the following: trustworthy, loyalty, accountability, fairness, inclusiveness, and non-discriminatory. So all of this is important that you have because it helps you to survive your environment at work. Your coworker will trust and respect you because of the actions you make, and you should always be responsible and willing to face the consequence of your actions if you make mistake. And you should be fair and respectful to everyone. Therefore, you should not discriminate others regardless of their status. The next slide, please. So we have here the principle of ethical communications. The number one is be truthful and honest. It is important for you to be truthful to all the to your own and be honest. The next one is active listening. So active listening, you need to be empathize the speaker and always ask questions for clarifications if you would be able to understand something. The next one is speak non-judgmentally. So we need to be fair and don't judge others. We should also always respect others so that they could respect you. The next one, speak from your own experience. We are all learning to experience. Therefore, to teach others, it is important to tell what our experience and what we learn from them so that they could learn it too. Next one is consider the receiver preferred communication channels. So we have here different types of preferred channel in communications. And sometimes some people prefer to talk in phone or in quiet places. Therefore, we should also consider it if we want to talk to someone. Strive to understand. So if we something unable to understand, it is need for us to be able to gather information. So we need to fully understand what is need to understand. So the next one is avoid a negative tone. Because sometimes negative tone mean it is past bad news, which is it could lead to misunderstanding. Therefore, we should avoid this. And the next one is do not interrupt others if they are talking and respect privacy and confidentiality. And for last, accept responsibility. Next slide. So we have here the advantage of workplace ethic, which is very important for the workplace to have. This advantage is help the employees in the company to increase their growth and to develop their own healthy environment so that all the employees and the company order could live happily and better futures for their for their employees. The next one, next slide please. So, unethical communication will be reported by Ms. Pangaliban.
When we say unethical communication, it can be any public communication which hinders civil or political rights, such as the freedoms of speech or religion. And these are the following example of behavior of unethical communication. The first one is the coercive. It is the act that in communication events or behavior reflecting abuses of power or authority that result in unjustified invasion of autonomy. And the second one is the destructive. It is the act and the communication event or behavior attacking receiver's self-esteem, reputation, or deeply held feelings, reflecting indifference toward or contempt for basic values of others. And the third one is the deceptive. It is act of communication in an event or behavior reflecting a willful perversion of truth in order to deceive, cheat, or defraud. This includes invasive or deliberately misleading messages, which in turn includes equivocation. And the fourth one is the intrusive. It is a communication behavior that is characteristically initiated by message receivers, and it is the tapping of telephones, for example, and the application of computer technologies to the monitoring of employee behavior. In other words, it is a surveillance. For the fifth one, it is the secretive. It is a various form of nonverbal communication behavior, especially in silence and including unresponsiveness behavior, as hoarding information and sweeping under the rug information that is or being revealed would expose wrongdoing or in emptiness on the part of the individuals in position of power. For the last one is the manipulative or exploitative. It represents a cluster of communication behaviors that definitely merit our attention. It is called sometimes open influence versus manipulation. It means it is seeks to gain compliance by exploiting people's fears, prejudices, or area of ignorance, or the word covert and hidden agendas. These are the examples of unethical behavior in the workplace. The first one is misusing company time. It is common for people to cover for a friend who is late or uh, take a few extra minutes on their lunch break. That is one of the example. Misuse of company time quickly adds up for an organization and encourages low productivity levels and a decrease in the bottom line. To determine whether employees have been misusing company time, a thorough and in-depth workplace investigation is often required. The second one is the abusive behavior. Uh, it is withholding opportunities, gossiping, and talking down to others are example of this abusive behavior from people in leadership position. Not only does abusive behavior violent employees' right, but it also has a direct negative impact on the company's bottom line. It is a large barrier that can prevent a team from performing a high level. Or the third one is violating internet policies. Example of this is blocking certain social media and video sites can only go far to stop employees from abusing their computer privilege. Cyber slacking is an issue that presents a multi-billion-dollar problem for companies across the world. In playing games, checking personal email, finding ways around website blocks, or chatting with friends are example of unethical use of your computer. The next one is the gossip. It is one of the most socially accepted forms of unethical behavior in the workplace. Speaking about a person while they aren't there creates rifts in relationship and is often the beginning of a rumor. Even if a rumor is proved to be untrue, just talking about it is still a subconscious impact on your staff. And the next one is seeing unethical behavior and doing nothing. It is hard to curb unethical behavior in your company if isn't reported. So, workplace where unethical behavior goes unreported often have employees who do whatever they can maintain the status quo. For the second one, payment fraud. It's essential that organizations take the time to build trust with their employees in the accounts payable department to reduce the risk of fraud. Switching to electronic payment system makes it easier to hold employees accountable and maintain consistent records. For the last one is taking credit for the work of others. This is an example of unethical behavior people use to get ahead. Some people may even try and justify this behavior by rationalizing that they were involved in the project. So workplaces with low emotional intelligence often have employees that feel the need to lie to get ahead. And that's all for the examples of ethical behavior. For the next one, to report the major cause of unethical communication, let us call on Miss Erica de la Cruz and Miss Kim Talde.
Thank you, Ms. Panganiban, for us for letting us understand about ethical and unethical communication. Now, the question is, why is there such a thing as unethical communication? What is the reason behind it? Before we begin, let us define first what is communication. Let's go to the next slide, please. Thank you. When we say communication, this is a way people use available resources to convey information, to move, to inspire, to persuade, to enlighten, to connect, and vice versa, etc. Meanwhile, when we speak of ethics, this means this is the study of values, frameworks, guidelines in differentiating good from bad. So that is communication and ethics. Now, I have this question with you. Have you experienced this? Telling someone what they want to hear in order to win favor versus telling them the truth they need to hear in order to improve. I have an example. Let's see the example, please. Thank you. All right. You see, this image is a screenshot of my conversation with Teo in our messenger group chat. And as you can see, I sent a set of photos showing the comparison of his profile picture and his actual face in the Zoom. I didn't say anything personal to the image, so Teo asked and responded this way. So do you mean pogi pa rin kahit sa Zoom? Now, if you were me, how would you respond to the question? To that question of Teo, how would you respond? Another question, another situation that I would like to put you in. All right. Making up a reason why you miss or why you are late in the class. These situations are one of the ethical dilemmas that faced every day of a normal person. You, me. These are the situations that we face every day. Ethical dilemma. What is ethical dilemma? Let us go to the next slide. Thank you. When we speak of ethical dilemma, this is the situation where an individual or a group is faced with a decision that tests his or her ethics. Okay. Let's define what is an ethical communication again. When we say an ethical communication, this is a communication that is used to undermine relationships. When we speak of undermine, there is a weakening relationship that will eventually detach you from someone. And it encourages social immorality. When we say social immorality, this is a wrong behavior that will eventually make you avoided by or avoided from good people. Okay, so that is an ethical communication. Now, what are the reason behind this? We've been talking about unethical communication. Why is there such thing as unethical communication? And these are the major cause of unethical communication. Number one is no code of ethics. So what is this? In a professional context, employees are more likely to do wrong if they don't know what's right at the first place. Without a code of ethics, they may be unscrupulous, and when we say a code of ethics, this is a proactive approach to addressing an ethical behavior. It establishes an organization's values and sets boundaries for adhering to those values. And everyone is accountable, okay? Second one is fear of reprisal. When we say reprisal, we are speaking about we want to do the same thing that someone does to us. It's like revenge, taking revenge, something like that. When explaining why they don't report such ethical misconduct that they witness, people often say it's because they worry about the ramifications. So if you do report this ethical misconduct, you might wonder what will happen to you next. What is the consequences, right? They don't want to damage their career or incur the wrath of the offender. Or sometimes they just let the infraction, they just let it go because they don't know how to put the report it, or they don't know how to report it, or they feel that their report may be ignored. So those are just some of the cause or major cause of unethical communication. And there's more to this. I would like to call on Miss Talda to discuss more about this.
Okay, thank you, Miss Delarue. So for the next major cause is the impact of peer influence. So it must be correct if everyone is doing it, or if that's the case, what is to stop someone from falsifying their expense report because their uh, co-workers don't get caught. So people are far too prone to imitating the negative behavior of others, and according to the research or the experts, people act unethically because they believe some dubious actions displayed by people who are similar to them, such as from the co-workers, your classmates, and etc. So there are more acceptable than those displayed by persons who are these things. So the meaning of the impact of your influence as this is the group of where you belong on how they influence you as a coworker or as a classmate. Next is going down a slippery slope. Misconduct begins with anything as simple as inflating a what do you call this, a millage report. However, the longer the offenses go undetected, the worse they grow. So the few additional bucks generated by the millage report may be overwhelmed by larger fake expenses or even open embezzlement in the future. So people who are confronted with more opportunities to act unethically are more inclined to rationalize their actions because it becomes habitual. Next is the last cause is setting a bad example. So ethical conduct begins at the top. Employees or your classmates, coworkers look up to the you look up to their leaders. For example, here, so Miss De La Cruz is our leader. So we look up to her and we follow her instruction. And also we also sometimes follow her personal character on what will go on to do this, what will going to do that. So this is the most important aspects in ethical leadership. So according to studies, corporate executives who demonstrates personal character are more likely to be seen as setting a strong tone. So employees may follow in the footsteps of their boss or leaders and leave work early every day or finish their task early. Then ignoring minor details will not always result in the types of scandals that make the news. However, if ethical wrongdoing is not addressed, it could be costly. Identifying the root reasons of unethical behavior in the workplace or in the classroom could help to avoid difficulties and reduce process. Okay, for the next topic that it will be discussed by Miss Estudillo and Scott.
All right, thank you, Miss Talde. So now, let us move on to the potential for communication abuse or any illegal ways. Okay, let's start. What is communication abuse? Let us see the next slide. So, communication abuse is defined as the use of a telephone or other electronic means to communicate words or language of a profane, vulgar, or lewd nature, or convey an obscene, vulgar, indecent, profane, suggestive, or immoral message to another person. So, in addition to that, communication abuse is generally called verbal abuse. But since verbal abuse can also be committed apart from word choice or even non-verbally, communication abuse seems an appropriate term. So the essence of communication abuse, like that of all abuse, is that
It limits the option of another person, or that it violates his or her fundamental integrity. Saying something that gives rise to bad feelings in another is not necessarily abuse. That said, verbal abuse is more common than is recognized. Next slide, please. So, what are the examples of communication abuse? So, here are some examples. First is a man calls his ex girlfriend repeatedly and hangs up when she answered the phone. And the second example here is a woman sent text message to her ex husband and threatens to take him back to court for a child support increase if he doesn't give her $500 immediately. So these are the examples of communication abuse. So now let us move on to the kinds of communication abuse. So what are the kinds of communication abuse? Let's start first with the blaming. What is blaming? So this communication abuse is blaming is the intended, or this is intended to put you down or control you by making you responsible for their feelings or actions. So when another person blames you, or they are disempowering themselves and taking on the role of a victim. So that's the blaming. So second is the name calling. So this is meant to hurt and insult the other person. So there is no place for name calling in any healthy relationship. So next, for the third kinds of communication abuse, we have raging or screaming. So what is this? So this is designed to intimidate and control the other and is a toxic school form of control. So that's it. So for the fourth kind, we have covert aggressive manipulation. So what is this? This can take many forms, and the goal is to get that other person to act or feel the way the manipulator wants, using charm, promising rewards, compliments, veiled suggestions of punishment, hopelessness, guilt, shaming, self deprecation, or playing the victim role. So, from the outside, the manipulator rather does not appear overly aggressive, so the other person may feel guilty, defensive, or confused. So for the fifth, we have ordering. So this type of communication does not come across as a request but as a demand. This is a form of control that demeans the other. So for the number six, judging and criticizing. So this includes giving unwanted advice and telling someone what they should do. So for the next kinds of communication abuse, Miss Estudillo, we're gonna
So
discuss.
the next part is number 7, jokes, sarcasm, and teasing. So it is a witty or iconic remark sarcastically is intended to inflict a wound, and it does. So people may also say hurtful things to cover up with "I was joking only." For example, why is alcohol the perfect solvent? Because it dissolves career, families, and relationship. Okay, I was just joking. Next one is opposing. So opposing is the abuser treats you like an adversary and argues against anything you say or you do. So they challenge your every opinion, thought, and perception without really listening to you. So number 9 is blocking. So the abuser will switch topics, make accusations, and or use tactics that essentially tell you to shut up. For example, what is happening today, that is the for example is the election that is coming, right? They some of the two what do you call this, two people or two what do you call that, two people are arguing about their candidate, whether they would vote this or vote that. So that is like they are having or telling you to shut up, and they are used making accusations, false accusations, just like that. So discount and belittling. So discount is belittling. It is used to trivialize or invalidate the thoughts or feelings of another. So it gives the message that what you think doesn't matter. So it is just you're just plain wrong, and that is period. For example, your partner might go out of their way to make you feel look stupid in front of other people, or they make fun of you. Number 11 is undermining and interrupting. So this often sounds like you don't know what you're talking about, or they finish sentences for you or speak on your behalf to others. For example, purposely share mistakes you've made with others. So interrupt you and contradict what you are saying in a way that makes others negatively question your words or ideas. So take actions to lessen the importance of your achievements or how you realize your accomplishments. So last number is lying and denying. So some abusers will deny that an agreement was made or a conversation took place. For example, including your prior abuse. So they even declare love or caring, causing the victim to feel crazy and doubt their own perceptions. It is called what you call gaslighting. So the goal of lying is always to manipulate or control the other person. And it is no place in a healthy relationship. So that's all. Thank you.
All right, now let's go back to our objective. Next slide, please. Next slide. All right. We hope that we were able to achieve these objectives that we set or we mentioned earlier. Now we are able to understand what is ethical and unethical communication. We were now able to understand what are the causes of unethical communication as well as the potential abuse and illegal ways in communication. So do we have more slides? All right. We were able to discuss those. Unethical, ethical communication reported or presented by Leslie and Mary Joy, major cause of unethical, presented by yours truly and Kimberly. And the last subtopic, potential for communication abuse or any illegal ways, presented by Shannon and Mary Rose. And that's all for our discussion and report for today. Thank you for listening.